How the placings were arrived at was lost on most of the competitors, the fans in the Sydney Opera House, as well as the leading bodybuilding publication at the time, and several bodybuilding historians.
You know, he kept the secret right to the very end. And there was judges change right at the very end. But most of the people I talked to, so if you looked at Arnold from head to toe and judged it right, he shouldn't have won. Because proportionally, his legs were not in proportion with his upper body. So he shouldn't have he almost got a perfect score there. I think he was 199 out of 100, almost perfect in proportion and symmetry, and he wasn't.
I've talked to quite a few people who were at that contest. I talked to Bill Pearl, I talked to Samir Benoot, I talked to Boyer Coe, Chris Dickerson, and everybody said Arnold was fifth or lower. And it's funny when you see, like you talked about Facebook, when you see the pictures or you hear the bodybuilding forums and people argue about it, the people that weren't there always say, well, he wasn't at his best, but I could see how he could win because he still looks better than everyone else. But everybody that was there said that he shouldn't have even placed in the top 5.
And the reality is, Arnold looked good, but not the Arnold that we're used to seeing.
I thought that he was lucky to place 106.
I think he did not have the best physique on that day.
But the truth must be told. Arnold was not in the top 5. I would vote him out of top 5.
Like he gave you Arnold what it should have. Arnold is maybe 5th place.
Take Arnold out because he wouldn't have made the top 8.
Honestly, about 6.
There is no way that Arnold Schwarzenegger deserved to win in 1980, not even close. It's interesting, at the 1980 Olympia, the only people who saw Arnold as the winner were the 7 judges and his closest friends. None of the other competitors saw him as the winner. None of the audience, or very few, only those that were his friends.
I don't think anybody, I can't recall Mike or anybody else said, I should have won in this event. But everybody was in agreement that Arnold shouldn't have won. Honestly, if I would have been a judge, I would have had Arnold probably somewhere around 6th or 7th place.
Arnold, it was clear to me, wanted to downplay the controversy because I went back to Calgary to write the report, and I got a message from Arnold that he was going to be in a little city north of Calgary called Red Deer. He was actually going to do a seminar the following weekend on this Saturday, and he said, I'm going to be in your neck of the woods. Well, why don't we get together and have lunch and talk? And I said, okay. So I drove up, it's an hour's drive or so, and I went north to Red Deer, and I sat in an Arnold seminar, and it wound down, and he saw me, and he took me out for lunch. And he says, so, what do you think of the contest, kind of thing? And I told him, I don't think he deserved to win, and I intend to report that. And he says, and he kind of, in a backhanded sort of way, he says, well, this is not the time to be airing dirty laundry. And he was really trying to soft soap the whole thing. And, he made me an offer that I could refuse. He actually offered for me to write his Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding along with Bill Dobbins, who he had contracted to work on the book. He said, would you like to write that with Bill on the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding? And I said, well, thank you for the offer. I appreciate it. Let me think about it. So we parted, and he went back to California. I went back to Calgary, and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to accept his offer. I don't want to be in any way tied or beholden to him. So I wrote Arnold a letter saying thanks for the offer, but I did turn it down. And then I went on to write the story that you read. And I think Arnold called me a whore after the report came out. Yeah. Then we sort of had a bit of a falling out because of that.
Another really interesting aspect of that was CBS Television flew all the way out to Australia. They had a 3-year contract with Mr. Olympia, and they filmed the contest. They got the footage back. Now, Arnold was booed at the end when he won. A lot of people booed. When they got the footage back, they were really confused. They didn't understand why Arnold won, because even they could see, these people knew nothing about bodybuilding, they could see Arnold didn't deserve to win. So they called up Ben Weider. They said, we got some questions before we air this. So Ben Weider sent Wayne Gallasch to New York. Well, Wayne lived in New York. So he came there with his wife, And Boyer Cole was in town, so Boyer Cole let.
This is what happened. So Sherman Egan, that was the guy's name. He was the guy that was producing the thing called CBS. So somehow or another, he calls me later that year because I'm in New York. And he says, if you'd like to see the uncut version, the unedited version of this thing, he says, meet me at CBS and I'll let you watch it. So I contacted Wayne, his wife at the time, Karen, Chris Dickerson, and one of Chris's buddies who wanted to watch the thing. I didn't realize what a great difference it was until you're sitting watching the thing. And that's when it really was apparent, hey, something is wrong. He says, we're never going to be able to show this on TV. He says, it's just too controversial. It was obvious to him that Arnold didn't deserve to win. And they didn't want to put something so controversial, even to the average person sitting in the audience to realize, hey, something is wrong here. This is not right.
They had the scorecards, and they said, we don't understand this. We don't understand these scorecards. And so the producer from CBS was like, how can he score perfect 20s when he didn't even do the poses? It doesn't make any sense. They're looking at like ice skating, figure skating, and they're like, you have to do the compulsory poses in order to score high. He's not hitting the poses. How is he scoring perfect scores? And they were asking Wayne Gallasch all these questions, and Wayne said, I don't know, I wasn't there.
And he said, this is it. We're not going back. So even though they paid the smoking fee for 1981, they never went back. And as far as I know, they never pinned anything related to bodybuilding ever again.
It's probably done the worst thing in the world it can do is set back bodybuilding a minimum of 5 years. CBS has completely denounced bodybuilding. They have not shown the Mr. Olympia contest in the States. I know they have not shown it abroad. But the young up-and-coming fellas, this fella here, how old are you? 14 years of age. That fella suffers because, the young fellas that would see the top professional bodybuilders on TV, and somehow that would spark them on to want to be a champion. Well, they don't get to see that. They don't get that stimulation, so they suffer, and the growth suffers. And the recognition and the integrity and the self-esteem, we all suffer because of one individual, doing his thing. They're talking about turning it over to 60 Minutes if they can put enough together and make a documentary out of it.
I'm Mike Walker. I'm Logan Paul. I'm Harry Reid. I'm Ed Black. I'm Donald Powell. First story on Daddy Rooney. Tonight on 60 Minutes.
60 Minutes, also from CBS, was going to run an investigation. And they never did, but they were going to. They were looking into it. And then CBS Sports finally said, we're not going to run it. We can't run it. It's too controversial.
The controversy of the 1980 Mr. Olympia contest would follow the event into the next year, when Arnold's best friend, Franco Columbu, would win the 1981 Mr. Olympia title, coming off a 4-year retirement, in a contest promoted by Arnold.
Boyer Cole, Mike Mentzer, Frank Zane, and Albert Beckles all said, we're not going in 81, we're boycotting the show. Because they heard rumors that Franco was going in it. And they said, after what happened in 1980, we know Franco's going to win. It's guaranteed. They were calling up the other bodybuilders and they were trying to get everybody to boycott the Olympia.
Well, it's generally known now that the top professional bodybuilders have gotten together and have not formed what we call a union per se, but we've gotten together and have decided that it's up to us to take control of our careers or take greater control over what's going on. It was my impression that weekend in Sydney, Australia, that Arnold was the IFBB. There wasn't one official who had the balls to stand up to him. Now I feel a responsibility to do something to correct the situation and see it never happens again.
I had received a phone call from Boyer Cole asking me to boycott the 81. I explained to him that I wasn't in the same position as him in regard to publicity and a footprint in the Parthenon of bodybuilders, and I needed to compete. So I didn't boycott it. I never contemplated boycotting it, even though I knew what was coming.
Oh, we were telling Tom Platz is, well, if we don't really, what about my career? I said, if you don't stick together with us, nobody's going to have a career. Mike's girlfriend happened to be in the Rose Cafe getting something to eat. And Arnold's telling him, he says, those bodybuilders think that they got to boycott to Mr. Olympia. He said, before it's all over, He said, y'all gonna be kissing my ass and they'll be in the contest.
And Dickerson at first said he was going to boycott it, but then he figured, hey, I'm second, so I could win.
As it turned out, they had signed it, but then immediately they said, well, if Mike is not going in, Frank is not going in, Boris not going in, maybe we got a chance. And that's why I've always said the only people that I really think had credibility then was Mike Mentzer, Frank Zane, myself, and Albert Beck. Because we stood by our decision, we wasn't going to be farther.
And so 1981, everybody was on pins and needles. Everybody thought, man, if they screw this thing up again. And so everybody was like really, really nervous. And I went to it in 1981. I had really good seats. I think I was sitting like the 5th row, front and center. And I saw the whole prejudging. I saw the whole night show. So they all come out. There was 17 guys. And I could not believe there was 3 guys that were never high placing in the Olympia before. And they were in their absolute best shape of their life. And that was Danny Padilla, Tom Platz, and Roy Callender. They all 3 looked amazing.
I personally did not believe Franco would win all year long. Everybody was telling me Franco was going to win, obviously. Arnold's his buddy. And I said, no, there's no way they're going to do 2 years in a row. It's going to be a slap on the face. They want to choose somebody safe like Chris Dickerson. I was wrong.
So Franco comes out, but he had no cuts in his leg at all. It was like they were puffy. You know what I mean? He had no cuts. Everything else was great. His upper body was fantastic. His arms were better than ever. His posing wasn't that great. His posing routine didn't get a lot of applause. But I think if you would have polled that audience after the prejudging, I think everybody in the audience would have said the top 3 was Platz, Padilla, and Callender. No doubt about it.
Franco wasn't that good. He had a bitch tip, that give leg. He won. 6.
Well, first of all, it was the loudest booing I've ever seen in a show ever. Then they gave Platz 3rd, and then it really got bad. And then by the time they got to Dickerson and Franco, most of the audience was leaving. They were like, fuck it, I don't even care who wins now. They gave Dickerson 2nd, Franco jumps off. Arnold and Joe Weider didn't even come out on stage. The place, people were going into their pockets and grabbing change and throwing it at the judges. They were throwing their programs at the judges. They were throwing change at the judges. It was insane. I'd never seen anything like it since.
So we not only had 1 year of it, but we have 2 years of it now, where Franco Colombo won it. And Arnold had promised it to him a year ago. And another year, it turned into another fiasco. 6,000 people in Columbus, Ohio, screaming and cussing and yelling that they gave it to Franco as it was planned. So I think the Mr. Olympia contest doesn't mean anything anymore. And it's, somehow I hope it gets better. I'm going to do everything I can to make it, to see that it turns around. But, right now it's a total mess.
A lot of people said, well, that Roy Callender was quoted as saying, after the Olympia contest, I'll bet Mike Mentzer, Boyer Coe, Frank's name are all back in California now laughing the rest. But actually I wasn't laughing because I'm not laughing situation. I didn't laugh last year. I wasn't laughing this year. Simply because of the fact that if Tom Platz had won, he could have gone from a really amount to being a serious bodybuilder, making $200,000 or $300,000 a year. That's serious. You run me about a man's livelihood. Apparently, Arnold and Franco think it's a joke. If I admit it's a very bad joke.
By this point in time, Mike Mentzer had seen enough and announced his retirement from bodybuilding. He would never compete again.
The idea that the game that he loved bodybuilding. That's all he loved training. He wanted to change, revolutionize the bodybuilding sport. And the fact that 2 years in a row, sport that he loved the most, to him it was like denigrated. It was like, how could they do this to bodybuilding? It really bugged him to the point where he lost total respect for the sport. I used to tell him, Mike, the best way to get even is to win. You have everything it takes. You've got the mind power, you've got the physique. There's no way you stand for it. And he just couldn't accept it. It was all about defending the sport and it was evil for him. All of a sudden it became evil instead of his home turf. And that was a sad time in my life. It was a heartbreaker.
You're seeing people control the sport now who don't have the real interest of the sport in mind. They see, however, that there's a bonanza to be made on fitness and training in general, and they want to be involved somehow. At present, it's obvious there's only one qualification to become an IFBB international judge, and that is that you sell Weider products in your respective country, period. As a matter of fact, in the work that I've done over the years with both CBS and ABC, who have, as you know, televised these events, both of these organizations have told me that they cannot believe how commercially dominated a sport bodybuilding is. Never before in their vast experience all over the world with literally every sport in the world, there is nothing to compare to the way bodybuilding is commercially dominated. Not one. I'm not stupid enough to think that the pulse of bodybuilding is going to skip a beat just because Mike Mentzer's gone. And I wanted to conclude by saying that I don't want to turn negative and dampen the enthusiasm of young bodybuilders whose sole goal is to improve their physiques. Bodybuilding in the purest sense is still the greatest sport in the world as far as I'm concerned. And there's a hell of a lot to be gained from it. Yeah, and it can be used even as a tool for improving one's character. It can help teach discipline, self-control, and that there's more to life than just looking for the effortless and the undemanding. It teaches you that the only things that are worthwhile in life are things that are gained through considerable personal effort and sweat. However, I don't accept this tacit code that most other top bodybuilders have, in which they believe that we should never say anything negative about the sport no matter what. If that continues to be the orienting philosophy of those involved in the sport, then the sport will in fact die.
Once the movie Pumping Iron came out, Arnold's book came out, Education of a Bodybuilder, everything started to change. People in Hollywood started working out more. Everybody loved bodybuilding. They were really looking up to it. This was before they knew about the steroid thing also, before they understood about steroids. And it was really gaining a lot of public acceptance. And there's a debate, there's a school of thought, I should say, that says that what happened in 80 and also in 81 kind of ruined it, because it was really going up. So it really kind of put the damper on everything.